had a lot of people on the show that transitioned later in life, but always knew when they were young, like your age, like Ted, like you said, you saw your first transgender person, you were 10 years old, but I've had a lot of people on that identified, okay, transgender from the time they were really young. They just knew. Did that happen for you, or it was something that you came upon?
I would say yes and no. First of all, certainly not in the same sense that other girls. I didn't feel like I was transgendered. What I felt like when I saw that transgender woman, transgender people, was I love the fact that they were doing what they wanted to do. I was telling everybody to go fuck themselves. Right? That's what I saw. Fuck them. Like, and even my mother's like, yeah, look at the transgender woman. My father was like, I think she looked great. Good for her. He was like, and I'm like, fuck them. Yeah. Just her attitude, the way she carried herself. I totally got it.
You got it.
Hated what American culture was.
Right.
Where I grew up. I'm saying I hate American culture. I hated the town I grew up with.
Well, you don't like what's conventional. You're not a conventional person.
Being programmed and being told what boys do, what girls do, being so focused on money. It was like, I mean, it was just that whole thing was so gross to me. The fact that people who were like alternative, like somebody was trans, like they were doing their own thing, and I was like, yeah. So that part, I absolutely knew. I didn't feel like I was trans. I thought it'd be, to me, it was kind of a lark. Like I would do it just to see what it was like, just to like rub my nose with other people. Right. But I didn't really feel trans. That came later.
Okay. How old were you when it came? How old were you when you started to feel that way?
When I started really feeling trans? The moment I got divorced. Well, the thing is, it was really a process. I would say the first thing I noticed when I literally went from 0 to 60 faster than a Tesla, I remember I was always kind of a performer. You didn't know that. I was kind of a performer in a way. I just didn't do it on stage. I produced plays at Carnegie Mellon, where I went to business school, but I spent a lot of my time at the College of Fine Arts.
Okay.
Producing shows. It's like,
well, there it was, Yeah.
Well, the thing is, I was actually the valedictorian of Carnegie Mellon Business School, MBA. And at the same time, I was producing shows over at the College of Fine Arts, because that's what I really wanted to do, And to me, it wasn't just like making comedy shows. It was making shows that had were poignant, which had a point,
Right.
I was in band. So I was always like, I was a public speaker. I was a lobbyist,
I read your resume, and I printed out what you sent me. It came to like 7 pages on my printer. It is really fascinating because you are good at everything you do. Let us even say great. And the fact that you were Carnegie valedictorian.
Yeah.
Did anyone ever say that you were incredibly gifted when you were in school?
They did, yeah. And it was like, to me, it was like I learned stuff easily, right? But I also, I thought a lot of it was just my attitude, really. I knew what was noise and what wasn't. I can smell bullshit from a mile away.
Yeah, I have that trait too, right?
Brainwashing going on, I'm going to show you a picture. The brainwashing going on to American children, programming us to act this way or that way was so blatantly obvious to me.
Right.
I mean, it was like, duh. And I actually wrote about it in my book.
Let me see this here. Oh, you have the pictures of the brain. Wow.
This is the monoculture virus brainwashing the little children.
So who did these illustrations?
A guy named Diego Sandoval. So I hired, what I did was I sketched these out. I wasn't nearly good at this, but I sketched the ideas. Right? Here you go. Wow. So, I love working with comic book people. So this is the introduction to my book, and you can see where I wanted to make people realize that I wasn't making fun of American culture. I was only making fun of the town I grew up in. I'm not saying, right. So he just said, oh yeah, it's like 100, there's 500 white people in my high school class and 2 black people. That pretty much says it. I grew up in a white neighborhood, right? And, you had this evil virus, was attacking us. So there was just a way, I just perceived it. I could tell that, what politicians said, what Americans, what was on TV. I just knew it was bullshit.
It's so funny that Chris Christie came from your town.
I went to high school with his younger brother. Yeah.
Oh my God. Epitome of a lot of the things that you're talking about.
Yeah. And so I instantly knew like I would look at something and I would say, well, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. This person's trying to bullshit me. Everything I ever did, I saw from a very creative perspective, right brain, left brain, and so yeah, sure, I was smart and everything, but I think I really do think a lot of it has to do with being trans. Honestly.
Well, no, I got to tell you, you are really onto something here. And again, I'm not a scientist, I'm not an educator, but I found some incredibly brilliant, and the same thing, the left brain, the right brain thing, which really fascinates me, and people that are trans. And I don't know what that is. Maybe you know more than I do.
So let me finish my story, and then you'll understand what I mean by trans. So trans is just a word, right?
Right.
So when I first moved to San Francisco, did I feel like I was trans when I was out there? No, I was just having a fucking great time. To me, I was in a costume. It didn't, it was sexy. I was pretty, straight guy dresses up as a girl, looks sexy, At first, it was just, I just was acting. I wasn't, I was character acting, meaning I was finding the woman inside of me. Because I was naturally very flamboyant anyway. My father was kind of a dandy, right? I think he was straight. Pretty sure.
It's funny. I got that impression when you were talking about your dad, but I loved his attitude towards life.
He just loved. He would go to the weirdest person in the room and start talking about him, right? So to me, at first it was just this thing. I'm just having fun. It wasn't like there was no identity there. I have this power of performing. I like doing this, and then I started realizing it. I started opening up all these doors. Like I started getting closer to women. I started learning more about women, and I learned all their secrets, which I wrote about in the book.
They're in the book.
And some of these even women either don't understand or they would argue with me because it makes them look bad. But you know something? We all have dark sides. So to me, the whole attitude I wrote about was the dark side. There's this whole side of you you're not trying to show. And I'm like, no, I mean, that's the source of all your problems. If you're trying to cover something that you are or you're afraid of it, you cannot blossom. You know what I mean? Literally. And it was
What were some of the secrets? Can you talk about some of the now you've got me transfixed. Can you talk about some of the secrets you uncovered?
When did I discover I was trans? And here's the interesting thing about it is I didn't decide I was trans. I just changed the definition of trans, right? Because as I experienced all of these wonderful things happening where people like me better when I'm a girl, even the straight people, I can't explain this, right? But the only explanation I can come up with was I could act any way I wanted when I was a girl. I can kind of act like my dad, all excited and joyful about being around people, exploring things. I could just act naturally. And for some reason, they like me better when I'm a woman. So I guess I'm trans.
So do you like you better as a woman? Do you like you better as a woman?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I think so. But I have no problem being a man. I like being a man.
Right. I get
what I don't like about being a man is being invisible. Not being allowed to express myself.
Right.
So it's like I'm perfectly fine being with a man and being in a relationship with a woman and making this just a stage thing. But that's not the way it's worked out. So I have so much more fun as Maria, and it's so much easier hooking up with guys. All I need is a lot of marijuana and some alcohol. I can fucking guy. Makes me feel like a woman. I'm not really into the guy. I just like feeling like a woman. Feel great.